All right. Uh, Weekly workshop recap number 33. It's the 33rd time we've done this. I'm going to do this one in the big room here because people have said that they're a little tired of the panel walls behind me. Better sound in there, more light in here. What can you do? So, this was Easter weekend. We met again on Sunday, 3 to 5. 33 people this time on Easter, 33 heathens who didn't care about the rise of biscuit-like Jesus. Some new faces too. Mike, a regular at the workshop, recommended us to some of his friends at Toastmasters. And so we had 5 or 6 people from Toastmasters, which I think is a really fun element to add into a stand-up mix. So we start out with the intro like usual. I run my background real quick as a stand-up writer and producer. I mentioned that I grew up as a stand-up in the club system when there were chains of clubs like funnybones and improvs, comedy zones, punchlines. And the whole game was trying to get the bookers to see you. And if they liked you, they could fill out your calendar like that for the whole year, which was pretty awesome. There's still some of that around, but way more comics, way fewer clubs, and they still pay the same or less, it seems like. That's been replaced in a lot of ways with the New York style clubs, which are the short sets, 7 to 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, from a lot of different comics, where they just showcase comics as part of the show. And that's also a lot of around Austin that has picked up that model. The sets are usually shorter than 7 to 10 or 15. And then Austin has its own guerilla comedy scene, which those have popped up everywhere in the country, where people come in, book a bar or whatever they can find, a hotel room, ballroom, coffee shop, and throw together a stand-up show, which is fun. I'm not sure how it ties directly into the industry anymore about getting paid, but fun to see. I secondly mentioned I morphed over into a writer pretty quickly, started writing for other stand-ups, and then I really pushed hard to get TV writing jobs and TV monologue, and that got me into talk shows. And finally, we focused on, I did producer work as well, which I started doing, again, sort of like everybody does, producing their own live shows locally, and then find variations of those, even producing the workshop where people could find value in it because it was actually structured and set up. And then when I got into talk shows, I immediately moved pretty quickly from writer to producer writer, where I get to produce segments of national TV shows. I eventually would have moved up the ladder and taken over shows just because that's my personality and I like taking on more and more things. But that was super fun. I learned a lot by producing segments. So we can talk about that some other time. Then in the career section, we branched off and kind of focused on producer work, because I think that's one of the things that you get pushed into pretty quickly as a stand-up, local stand-up, when you're trying to figure out how to get more time, how to have more fun, how to have more control. You start producing your own shows. And like in everything, there are people that are really good at it, there are people somewhere in the middle, and there are people that are bad at it. They just don't curate the show as well as they probably should. Producing work is a job. Like, it's a job. You can get the same kind of job in corporate work. They call it product manager, or one of the other many different variations they have for mid-level slave. But you basically do all the admin work, you do all the financial work, you do the negotiations, you deal with all the problems. So it's not nearly as fun as strictly creative work, of like just getting hired to be a writer or a performer and things like that. But you kind of better sign off on the fact that you're going to have to do some producer work in entertainment, no matter what kind of entertainment you're in. It gives you more control, a longer lasting career, you understand the industry better, all the things that can upgrade you as an entertainer and especially a comic. Finally, we talked a little more about national careers versus local careers and setting yourself up locally to do national growth. Like, growing into a local scene really doesn't do much for you. Like, it just makes you small as small as the local scene is. And eventually you're gonna have to move somewhere where it's a bigger scene, and then try to use that bigger scene like a New York or an LA or Chicago or whatever to percolate up into the industry itself. And when you do that, you start doing TV spots and showcases and all the kind of stuff that give you, again, a new version of who you are. And of course, there's also the theaters, trying to move up to the national scene and learn how to play a big venue. Finally, after the career stuff, we moved into the skills section, which here in Austin, for the last month, we've been in writing work on developing writing around biographical content. And we talked about families and education and work and locations you can go and harvest content. So take it over into a stand-up writing process from there. But this month in April, we're going to move over into performance skills. And that's what we started with this week, which is very, very different in many ways. In some ways, it's still scripting, but it morphs and blends into acting really fast, and it's much closer to improv than stand-up is. So a lot of those things start to come in to inform the stand-up. Stand-up acting is a little different. You basically have two things you're acting. You're acting your core self on stage, like who you mostly are most of the time. And then all your characters, all your act outs, all the things that you can bring into it as actual acting, but just in a monologue format. So we got to get people to start thinking about themselves as not just stand-ups as a generic idea, but performers. And can you amp your performance skills? Can you work on your voice and all the different things in vocal work? It's amazing how much micro stuff is going on of pacing and tempo and a punch and tone and emotions. So you got to work with your voice, your face, your hands, your costuming, your hair, everything. We had a guy at the workshop this week who had really long hair, a young kid in his 20s, and was covering his face. But every time he flew it up like this in order to look at the audience, it got a laugh. So that was kind of fun to watch. So you're trying to rearrange just your strictly stand-up psyche into a performer psyche. So you have your stand-up script, the written jokes, but you have a second script going along next to it, which is your performer script. And it's almost like a musical orchestration where you take notes on the musical score, faster here, softer here, bring in a new bassoon, whatever you want to put in your notes. But you're adding a performance channel for people to laugh at. So that double channeling of people are being able to laugh at your performance and laugh at the words that they're hearing doubles the power of the stand-up. And if you're really good at it, you start getting responses that you never got just from strictly pushing the script into front of people's faces. In the 20-minute exercise, we again split into groups with a quick exercise of everybody take a 5-minute spot and be the performer, and the other 3 people got to be the director. The director in this situation is, they tell the stand-up, is it finished yet? Is it cooked as a performance? Are you doing stuff with your face, body, hands, voice? Are you using emotions? Where are the emotional beats? Like, is there enough variety in this performance? Which is fun. Like, I really like directing because it makes you communal with somebody and gives them a place to sort of read this before they actually have to take it in front of an audience. And this is an expert reader. This is an expert audience watching it and helping you develop it. Really, really helpful when you get a really good director, as people will learn once they move into a little bit more into the Hollywood system of professionalized entertainment production. Stand-ups usually don't get that, especially not very, very micro-focused direction. So I think it's useful. Finally, in the 60-minute instant fix session where we throw people on stage, let them run something, I interrupt it, and everybody instantly jumps in and helps to try to fix it or improve it. We again did performance, and I put some things in the private Facebook group. I put 4 scripts in there that were acting heavy. And if people wanted to use those, memorize them as best they could, figure out how to perform them, come into the workshop and perform them, then they could. And 2 different people did that in different ways. Like, there was a guy, Tyler, who really looked like hyper memorized the King of Beers script, and even wore some costuming and had his assistant helping him with the second role, which was interesting but it was more theatrical. It was more acting than straight stand-up, because stand-ups act the roles, but they never do costume changes, and they're not being watched. They're projecting this out and still communicating it as public address. So we worked on that some. One of the other guys did the Jack the Ripper script, which was fun. but he didn't have it memorized, so he kept changing the punchlines and missing things. Acting is its own thing. You have to get off script. You have to memorize and get off script, so then you can start to make it natural and inhabit it and give it some really performance flavor. And then a lot of people did other stuff, and it was fun. It was fun watching people try things. And again, I grab people. I found what I can compliment, what I think they're doing well in performance, and then I'm like, these are things you could work on. And some people blew it open. Like, they walked up there and they're just an interesting character and a lot going on performatively. And other people are still in that sort of early stand-up, just constrict yourself and mute yourself into this tiny little performance box where you almost do nothing on stage. So it was a good week. I think people saw that it's really exhausting to work on performance and to take it up to a professional level where it's super interesting and super supporting your script. But it's something great to develop. It's also, honestly, the one thing that can move you easily into other more traditionally money-making parts of entertainment, commercial work, acting, even if you're doing small parts in films, things like that. If they see you've got some acting training and you've got some acting background and credits and, you went to this school, you get trained at the Comedy Accelerator, then they can trust you to be able to hit the marks, do the character the same way every time, make adjustments when they're suggested, and you can get hired to do some acting work. So start working on that. And it doesn't mean, again, for stand-ups, they all need to be huge actors and huge energy and Robin Williams and all that. It's just that they need to be able to handle the type of acting that's going to make their show better. Finally, we jumped over to the Saloon show for the weekly Accelerator. And this is the first week we did the variation show, the hot mic comedy social. I got kind of fed up or depressed or uninterested in straight stand-up monologue and a passive audience listening, because it's really hard to pull off for people when they're early in their careers. They don't know how to bring energy and dominate the room, and the room starts to deaden. How do you come in and lift it back up? Those are skills that we don't really have across the workshop yet. And it turned into all stand-ups listening to a stand-up do material that they kind of heard before. So instead of that, we fractured the space. And by that I meant we turned it into a social. So everybody was socializing and networking and telling stories to each other. There's always good energy in the room when comics do that. But we left on a hot mic, and we had a dominator, a dominatress, dominatist, who ran the show and hosted it. And basically anybody could get up and do 30 seconds. Do something stimulating for 30 seconds. The audience does not have to be quiet while you're talking. They don't have to stop their conversations, but they'll still hear it. And we'll see if we can flavor the room with some monologue, but not in a way that turns off the dialogue going on. And it turned into what I thought it was, which is kind of a glorious, piece of chaos. We had a guy who had nothing to do with the workshop. I don't know where he came from, named Thomas. He was an accountant. He was super drunk. I could tell he was drunk before he even started the thing, because he was drifting through everybody and staggering. And he wanted to get on stage, and we let him get on stage once, and of course it was a disaster. He just talked about doing coke and how much he loves doing drinking, and then he yelled, and then I got off stage, and he kept trying to get back up there, and I wouldn't let him get back up there. If I'd have been the host, I would have toasted the guy. I would have just scorched him, because it's fun to scorch people who are stupid and drunk and getting in the way. So anyway, we didn't torch him, but I thought the format worked pretty well. So we're going to try it some more with some tweaks, and we'll figure out what those tweaks are. The assignment for next week: take one of your existing stand-up bits and write out performance orchestration notes on that script. So as you read through it, every time you see a noun and a adjective and a character and emotion, make a note, and then see if you can follow that performance script the same way you're following your stand-up script. Most stand-ups, when they're early and learning, just get up there and just blaze right through the material. They don't do any emotional beats hardly at all. So this is just an exercise to see if you can start to hear the emotions in there, maybe hit some of them, think about how to perform them, and be able to add that to your script every time. So we'll do that again next week, and figure out the strongest ways to tell the best jokes at the Comedy Accelerator. See you next week.